What's up, guys? Aaron from Metro East Libertarians. I have joining me today Richard Light, Libertarian candidate for the Governor of Maine. He is running on a platform of moving education, healthcare, and corrections toward a zero-profit government model. That may not make a lot of sense to my Illinois viewers, so we're going to talk about that. Ending the income tax in Maine, ending sales tax for Mainers, and also, a handful of other libertarian stances that we're going to get into. Richard, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Aaron.
All right, we got a little bit of a delay, so I hope you're not too bothered by that. Richard, real quick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also, why you decided to run for governor in Maine?
Fair enough. So I'm a Maine resident, always have been. I was abroad and so forth for my time in the Army. I've served in many different capacities as far as a worker goes. I'm a real worker, not a politician or a political crony or not a political hack, any of that. I've worked in corrections, I've worked for schools, I've worked for businesses, I've run businesses, I've worked labor, broken my hands, I've been a mechanic. The diversity that I'm coming at this from is from the private sector. And while I've had a bit of experience working for the state and working for the federal government, every instance that I've worked for those departments has shown me that the public sector doesn't do it better, and the public sector is not there for the people. People that are harmed by the system have no way of routing out a bureaucrat. This is just absolutely not possible. And hopefully we'll delve into some of the experiences I had in mental health working at the Maine State Psychiatric Facility, where bureaucrats truly were. They facilitated suicides, strapped people down for 4, 5, 6 days without food. The atrocities were unreal. And, I wrote to my state, I wrote to my governor, I wrote to my newspapers, and ultimately I made them lose $27 million when the federal government came in and said, this is sick. What are you people doing? And those problems have still not been corrected because the issue is institutional. It's definitely not an issue with, 1 or 2 people. It's the entire culture of the building. And that culture is rooted in having a public union. So that's just one facet of where I'm coming at, and that really was what put me on the course here. When I got out of the Army, I didn't have a lot of job options being an infantryman who didn't have a knee anymore. So I tried to go into education. The state stopped me. From there, I tried to go into mental health. It took me 2 years of additional schooling, another $100,000 in schooling, and a ton of apprenticeships that I had to pay for out of pocket. And at the end of the day, I still have to ask the state's permission to get a middle wage job. And, that's really what drove me over the edge. I said, forget this. If I can't get a middle wage job, then I'm going to try to smash the system that's keeping people from having an economic opportunity. And that's why I'm running for governor.
Okay, that's quite a compelling story. So, man, I want to try to unpack a lot of that kind of stuff. First, I want to go back to the platform. I can't get over the driving people to suicide. Hold on. I want to get back to the platform here, and so you've got your first item here is moving education, healthcare, and corrections toward a zero-profit government model. Now, I think the people watching this, they'll say zero-profit government model. The reason they want to move things into the public sector is to eliminate the profit motive, and so that those words together probably don't make a lot of sense.
You're speaking the language, man. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on up there in Maine that this is the deal?
Well, I think it's the institutions all across America. Bureaucrats make 78% more than regular private sector jobs doing the exact same job. At the same time, the workers that can't afford health care, can't afford education, can't afford retirement, they're paying for bureaucrats to have a free boat, free ride, free dental, free health care, free educational benefits, free retirement, and the same for their kids. All at the same time, they're going broke and unable to afford, the compliances of the ACA. The reality is that government has plenty of money, and they're just hoarding it right up. So the removing the profit from government is exactly what I'm looking to do in Maine, because that profit motive is destructive in the public sector. Thought the point of having a public sector was so that we could take care of one another, so that we could, have an equitable system of laws and justice, so that we can keep interstate commerce, fair and non-binary, I guess. So I just see that all this collection of wealth keeps going to the state, especially in our state. We don't have any job opportunities here. We have a really horrible economy in the state of Maine. So everybody's goal is to work for the state. And at the same time, not only does working for the state take jobs away from people in the private sector that could be being done by the private sector, taxable jobs, but it's an increased burden. I mean, we're paying twice as much to get the service, and we have absolutely no way to root people out of these jobs who do harm people, because they're protected by their licenses, they're protected by the unions, they're protected by the bureaucracy itself, which takes us, the regular consumer or the regular citizen, and turns us into the serfs. It's just an unfair and unbalanced system. So what we're trying to do here, and what we're looking at, is, as a governor, you're in charge of running the institutions of the state of Maine. That you're not a lawmaker. That's the legislators. What we're looking to do then, from the seat of the governorship, is to take the institutions, the major institutions that cost us the most money and have the most impact: education, healthcare, and, in my opinion, corrections, and taking the profit motive out of it and turning that into an actual, almost socialized system. I know that's a trigger word for a lot of people, but I'm only talking about the government model. I want to get government out of competing against the private sector. So in order to do that, we really need to separate the institution from the private sector and not have it competitive, not have it even funded by the private sector. They need to be completely doing different things. All we really need the government for, in a lot of people's opinion, is to help the poor. That means education for, education for kids, healthcare for the poor, and people that need to try and potentially incarcerate. So taking the profit out of those means that people that want to work in those industries to actually help people that are poor will have the option to do that. Because as we know, as volunteerists, I can't just go out and help somebody. If I have my MD and I help somebody, I can be held really liable for doing just free work. I'm a mental health counselor right now. I am quite literally not allowed to counsel people for free because I'd be violating my license. It's an atrocious system. If you want to help your neighbor, volunteers know you should be able to help your neighbor. It's as easy as that. So the actual removal of the institutions, I mean, you're saying, well, how are we going to get a doctor to do the job? Or how are we going to get a nurse to do the job for free, right? Most of the institutions that we have now employ people that do jobs that require a 4, 6, or 8-year degree. That's just the standard. That's the standard that the institutions have moved to. So it's required that you do these undergraduate studies, that you do these master's level classes. Now, while I was doing my master's classes for 2 years, like I said, I had to pay the institution that was giving me the degree. And then I had to find myself an internship that was unpaid. Then I had to work for an employer who employed somebody to supervise me who wasn't getting paid because I wasn't able to bill consumers. So the business had to suffer economically and put somebody to work for free. Then I had to pay out of pocket to get the job done. And I was doing a job that we pay DHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, we pay social workers to do the exact same job that I was doing and paying out of pocket to do. So if we really want to look towards higher education, and we want to ensure that we actually do have a higher educational system, and that we, that we restrict jobs and we ration jobs based on this system, then why aren't we giving the system away for free? So in other words, I'm saying that Maine can trade, and Illinois could do it. Any other state could do this if your state has the gumption to get it done. But you can trade students that come to your state all of these internships and apprenticeships and make them not have to pay to do the job. And at the same time, they can intern and apprentice in all of our institutions across the state, such as DHS, so that a social worker through DHS isn't making $70,000 out of taxpayer money, but it's instead trading a free product, which is a service-based, education is service-based, for another service-based service that the government is offering, in other words, healthcare. So you can look at all the sections, and this is a model that can work in all kinds of, in all the institutions of the government. So they have a DOT that fixes trucks. Well, mechanics still need to work X and X hours to get their degree, to get it conferred so they can get their certification and so forth. Yet again, the student is paying for a service that somebody else, that state, is getting for free, and we pay the state to do. So we just need to end that duplication and remove the government system completely from competing with us in the free market. That way, if I'm poor, I can go over to DHS and I can say, look, man, I don't have any money. Can you send me to a doctor or a nurse who can help me out? And they're going to send me to a student who will be free. Who's still going to be just as credentialed as the person that's 1 year ahead of them who has the degree, and yet it won't cost me a penny and it won't cost them a penny. And at the same time, if I want to pay for, a surgery or something in the free market, there's absolutely zero competition that the government is offering. They're not rationing the healthcare service, and they're not making it more difficult for me to access a doctor because there's this huge waiting list of people who are trying to get in on the free system. So we can have both systems separate, but, not necessarily equal, but definitely separate and with a zero profit motive for the government side. So all I'm trying to do is remove the profit model. I know that was long spieled, but it's kind of an intense thing.
Yeah, no, I understand. So basically what you're getting at is, you have the government providing services to people that, again, as libertarians, we believe that these services would be available. Especially you talk about healthcare. I'm kind of deviating from what I even started saying. What you said there about healthcare, about you not being able to treat somebody for free, is very interesting, because when libertarians say, well, the market should take care of healthcare and charities and types of things like that, and people say, well, nobody would do that. Well, first of all, if you and I decide we want to go start a hospital, let's say we had the qualifications to do that. Let's just say healthcare is a problem, poor people aren't getting it. We're going to go start a hospital and just start treating people out of the goodness of our heart. First of all, we're not allowed to do that. Okay, so the government's going to step in and say, oh, sorry, Brody, you guys can't even begin to do that. All right, so they're crimping our ability to.
We need to have this profit motive.
Right, exactly. So I think we got a little bit of a slower connection there. Okay, it seems to have cleared up. Right, and the government is taking money from people, using that money to, provide all these services. Meanwhile, like you said, students and things are having to dump tons of money into it as well. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. All right, I do want to shift gears here and talk about the economy there in Maine. Now, I know you guys have more of a tourist-based economy. When you're not in a trade dispute with Nova Scotia or whatever else you guys got going on.
Yep.
And so two things that you have here is ending the sales tax for Mainers, and also ending the income tax in Maine. So those two things would go pretty far toward helping the residents there. And then also, if I can tie it in, ending licensure, regulations, testing, and other state mandates that keep people from being able to be employed. So if we can kind of tie those three things together, and how you think that'll help the economy there in Maine, the people.
So the real question we have to begin with, I suppose, is that how are we going to pay the bills if we end all these taxes in the state of Maine? Now, we're talking about reducing bureaucracy by thousands of jobs and returning a lot of those jobs to the private sector. So we can talk about the fabricated math, or the implied math, that we'll have more taxes coming in from more workers. But more so, we're going to have less of a burden because we'll have less bureaucrats getting paid a ton of money to stand in the way of people trying to get jobs. And that's really why we want to end, or at least change the system of licensure. I'm looking to, I don't think we're going to be able to have the will and the movement to smash licensure right now. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But what we can do is we can change the credentials so it's not limiting people to only have these the bought and paid for degrees, and it allows people who have been working in industries to get jobs. Take, for instance, a CNA. A CNA that's working on their job for 30 years knows darn well in and out how to do the nurse's job. They're very skilled, they're very able, and yet without the degree in nursing, they have no path to getting a nursing license. So they can't just go in and take the test and prove their worth, their mettle. Experience means nothing in our system, and I think we really need to change that. Education is where this really comes into play. We don't just allow anybody to be an educator, and that was what I learned when I came out of the Army and when I tried to be an educator. I had an English degree, was my undergrad, with minors in military science and automotive technology. I know it's a little weird of a combo, but bear with it. So I tried to get a teaching job, and they said, no, you have to have an education degree. So it kind of took me back by surprise, saying, you're crying about needing educators, and we need quality educators. I'm here, I'm willing to do the job, and I'm able to do the job. So why are you not allowing me to do the job? And that is exactly the issue we have with licenses. At the end of the day, an engineer is not able to teach my child math, and I find that just atrocious. That system is not right. It is broken. We definitely need to fix the licensure issue so people can get middle wage jobs. We're not talking about being billionaires. We're not talking about soaking people for a lot of money. We're talking about middle class jobs. Ending sales tax in the state of Maine, that's sort of I'd like to end all sales tax. What I'm proposing as a compromise is that if you have a state ID, no sales tax for you. We border New Hampshire. The only state in the United States that we border is New Hampshire. They have no sales tax. People flood from southern Maine to go to New Hampshire to buy stuff. Every time I'm in New Hampshire, I do extra buying to buy stuff. This is affecting their businesses positively, and it's mal-affecting our businesses here in Maine, just for a geographical border. 30 feet over there, no taxes. 30 feet over back this way, ton of taxes. So I just find that disturbing, and we really know that sales tax, I find, is it's not really the worst tax. Income tax being slavery, legitimate and actual slavery, is probably the worst one. But sales tax restricts things. If I grow a potato in my backyard and I sell it to my neighbor off my front porch and I didn't pay any taxes and they didn't pay any taxes, I've committed a crime. So being poor or being without a lot of means, except for my hands, my labor, my time, it makes me a criminal for trying to sell those things without trying to give the tax man a little bit of money on it. It's just restrictive on trade, and we really want to be trade. I mean, people decry the free market idea, but we haven't had a free market in a very, very long time. The more government we have, the less free market we have, and that's just true across the board. So, we covered our economy, we covered those taxes. Just I can actually defend property tax in a lot of ways. You can. At a property tax level, you actually have a say in your community. When I go to my town meetings once a year and we talk about our budget, I can sit there and say, you know what, man, we don't need a third fire truck. That just doesn't make any sense for me to have to pay a few extra bucks. And I can get into a verbal battle with people around me, and we can actually sway things in the room. But I don't know when the last time any of you tried to contact your senator or your congressman or the POTUS ever happened, but you get a robo-emailer and that's nothing. It's a machine you're talking to. At best, you'll get an intern or an IT guy, unless you have one of the trigger terms that might lure in some media for them. If you're a veteran, or if you're a fire teacher or something that gets you in their door just because they're going to gain politically. And that's not the system that we need. The system we need is where you have the right to defend your labor, your property, your body, and the farther out of your control that is, the more centralized it is, the less say you have in your own life. So I'm just trying to get a little more say to a few more people in the state of Maine, and preferably everybody who have a voice. Not everybody wants to speak up. Not everybody can speak up, and that's why we have some great advocates out there. We have activists all over the nation. You're probably an activist just watching this interview. So, you are the front line for other people's defense. We don't need a centralized government commanding us to what to do. We ourselves have a voice, and we ourselves have power.
All right, Richard, so a lot of the stuff that you just hit on there leads me right into the next thing I want to talk about. Whereas, as libertarians, sometimes we are critical of democracy, and for good reason, but one of the ways when the legislature will not do the right thing, one of the things that we have in our pocket is direct democracy, where a referendum can be sent to the voters. And so one of the things that makes me the most angry is this situation right here, where in Maine, you guys have apparently approved recreational marijuana use, but now your governor is saying, at least by some reports, that he's not going to go along with the voters on that. Give me your thoughts on that situation.
So, Governor LePage has great math. His math is phenomenal. He's a forensic accountant, is what some people call him, which is great. He can look at our state budget and see things that need to go, and he's not very wrong. He's a little harsh, and he's considered unempathetic, but but he's a straight math guy, so that's to be expected. As far as the pot goes, I think that he really sees it as a math issue, that if we're going to tax it, because that's what legalization means, we didn't deschedule it, we didn't decriminalize it here, we still have people that are going to be going to jail and still are in jail for pot crimes. So it's not really the best solution, but we did legalize. People are looking at those dollar signs, and the issue I think that LePage has is more so that the money is being fought over, and it's not going to go to the projects that he would rather see it go to, which is cops, law enforcers, jails, justices, and anything to do with the law enforcement branch. He's right-wing. He's a Republican through and through. He believes that the moral authority of an individual should be expressed through government force, and he wants to be able to pay for it.
All right. So then the next thing is, when I found out, when I first started looking at your campaign the other day, another instance of direct democracy is instant runoff voting. So here in Illinois, we have a bill in the legislature, and I can assure you it's going nowhere, to change our voting system to an instant runoff system, which if you're watching this and you don't know what that is, that's where it's also sometimes called ranked choice voting, where you will rank the candidates based on your preferences. And so if somebody gets more than 50% of the top choice, the number one choice, then automatically they win. However, if nobody has more than 50% of top choice, then the last person is eliminated, and then the remaining choices are given. So if you had somebody as number two, if you pick the last ranking guy as number one and you had another guy as number two, now that number two will get your vote in the next calculation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously politicians do not have an incentive to approve this type of system because it puts their jobs at great risk. So in Maine, miraculously, you guys get instant runoff voting onto a ballot referendum. It gets approved, and then the Supreme Court comes in and says, no, that's unconstitutional. So here it is, everywhere around the country, everybody's excited to see what Maine does in 2018, and it looks like it might be a disaster. How's it look from where you're sitting right now?
So the idea is that ranked choice voting has crashed and burned in the state of Maine. Actually, I think we only are implementing one of all the citizens' initiatives that got passed. All the rest have been thrown out, even though the people spoke. So, I get the fight against the direct democracy idea, and the way that our system for that works here is that if we get enough people to sign a petition and then we get it voted into the 51% plus category, then they send it to the legislature to determine whether or not they basically hand it to mommy and daddy to say, can I have permission to do this? That just is the way our system is set up here in Maine. So what they had determined was that this is not constitutional, and it's not by our constitution. We did have a spat, Augusta, in 18 something or other with we had a little civil war brewing because someone didn't quite earn 50% over 100 years ago in the state of Maine for their governorship, which is almost ironic looking at today's day. And so we had our general Joshua Chamberlain came in, and he had to squash the resistance and say, look, whoever got the most votes got the most votes. That's all there is to it. Sure, there were 3 people in it, but nobody got 51%. Boo-hoo, it's over. The person with the most votes won, the plurality rather than the majority. And that was the law of the land from that day forward. So according to our Constitution, ranked choice voting is not constitutional. But we, as recently as, I think, less than 10 years ago, we've already changed our Constitution so that we made mandatory educational funding in the state of Maine. Something like 55% must be mandatorily spent by the state government. That way it puts relief on the property taxes. Well, anybody who knows math just means that both people are going to get screwed, and we're all going to get screwed twice because the state's going to get it, plus the towns are going to get it. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that the Constitution was changed, is changeable, and that the two-party system, we have very, very few independents in the state of Maine. Because of the current, climate, we have a lesser of two evils kind of state. Ranked choice voting would have unrooted that idea, and absolutely zero red and blue team people are supporting the idea now. Janet Mills, the Attorney General, who's also going to be running as the Democrat gubernatorial candidate, was the Attorney General at the time, and was also the Attorney General over the last 2 years while we were trying to make the Libertarian Party a valid and real party in the state of Maine. 2 Supreme Court battles and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, we finally have a small window where we're allowed to compete as a Libertarian Party until November of 2018, where they could just throw it right out the door again. We have been systematically stopped by the red and blue team at every step of the way of trying to get any type of individuals into office or having any form of individual representation. The system is very, very good at keeping it locked into red and blue.
Yeah, so I would say that that's a similar situation we're facing here, and obviously in a lot of states across the country. I just have a real problem with the Supreme Court ruling a ballot referendum unconstitutional, because if we believe in this myth that we've created here in the United States, is that the people have the power, the people hand that power over to a government through some sort of consensual agreement. Mm-hmm. So then if the people hand them something else, the government can't turn around and go, oh, no. That's not the way we're going to do it. I mean, to me, that says that if you take a ballot referendum, if you take this to its logical conclusion, if you take a ballot referendum, says, well, all the people voted, this is the way they want the government to work. And then the government comes back and says, no, this doesn't fit in line with the document that we have here that says this is how we're going to run things. And to me, that just belies the nature of what's going on.
Okay.
But to me, if they say that, this doesn't fit, the people can't. The Constitution, in my opinion, doesn't work that way. The state constitution applies to the state government, not to the people. So if the people approve something, then the state government's going to have to fit that in somehow. I mean, this is obviously a modification of the agreement.
I think you're right on constitutionality, which is a conversation a lot of people have. The idea of the contract. When I was born, I never swore an oath to the Constitution. When I went to a job or an employer, I never swore an oath to the Constitution. The Constitution never once dictated what or how I do anything until I joined the service. And I said, okay, now I'm making that oath to this Constitution. So I was effectively joining up with the American corporation and following the corporate bylaws of the corporation, which we understand to be that only the Constitution applies to the people who swear that. That's bureaucrats, politicians, and anybody else who works for the government. You and I should not be subject to the Constitution. That's why the Bill of Rights has a constraint of the government, not a constraint of the people.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think you hit that right on the head, man.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that whole idea is just sort of, I guess I could say it illuminates the nature of what these people are doing. They're not there serving the people, they're there holding on to control. And like you said, the Attorney General now running for governor, obviously no conflict of interest there, eliminating the competition right before her run, right? So, I mean, it's just hands in every part of the pot. It's just unbelievable. And like you say, I mean, we got the same thing going on over here in Illinois. So let me get back to some other things here. Self-defense. You've got that as part of your platform here. That
yes, sir.
No one should be left defenseless. We don't need victims, and the self-defense will not be questioned. So, what are you going for there? What's the situation currently in Maine with people being able to have armed self-defense, and what do you want?
in an interview. Thank you. Okay, random customers just grab me in restaurants.
Hey, good
So,
man. Give them some
right?
campaign material and
Actually,
and
she gives really good massages, frankly. So if you're in the area, just come to Dunkin' Donuts and you get free massages.
Very nice.
So looking at self-defense, a question about guns rights, Second Amendment, that's a part of it. It's not necessarily about guns to me. If you are very creative and you invent the next best equalizer that's affordable enough for other people to be able to defend themselves with, then replace all the guns on the planet with it. The point is that you yourself should not be left defenseless. And that's anybody. The only equalizer, I'm a 200-pound, 6-foot guy with combat training. Like, if I want to take something from somebody, there's a really good chance I can. So the equalizer for someone who's smaller, or for someone who hasn't the will or tenacity to be able to engage in a way to defend themselves, needs an equalizer. So right now, that's a gun. It could be a taser. It could be anything. But the idea that your self-defense or your means to self-defense should be taken away, and that because you're smaller, that you deserve to have things taken from you, is an atrocity in society. This move to basically victimize people. It's not really a moral stance that is coming from, it's a fear stance. So I understand fear, I understand subjectivism. Again, I'm a counselor, this is something I deal with all the time, is trying to root people out of their own fear. So the subjectivist mind frame is, if I can do great evil because I think great evil things, then other people must be able to do it too. So really what they're worried about is you hurting them. So, the statist goes, well, I need to put somebody between you and me, so I'm going to put the government between you and me. And then the anarchist is in the same thought, and they say, well, I don't want to put anybody between you and me. I actually want to get the hell out of here. Leave me alone. So it's really coming from the same point of fear, whereas we just actually need to be a little more self-reliant and trust that while other people will make bad decisions, they're already going to make those bad decisions, and you can't stop them from doing that. So what you're best to do is be able to defend yourself from other people's poor decisions or victimizations. There's just absolutely no room for victims in our society. That it makes no sense to force people to victimization. And that includes people who have served their time. This is a hot conversation sometimes, but the idea that you serve your time and then you get out and you have to suffer for the rest of your life. And we might talk about criminality here too a little bit, but if you've served your time, you served your time. So what are you serving now, other than a punishment to society? And I don't think that was really the point. I thought the point for punishment was more of a punishment for the victim, so that they can feel relieved, or so that some liability happened for the damages that you wrought on them. But to suffer for the end of your life, or till the end of your life, makes no sense. If we actually want to keep criminals until the dying day, then keep them locked in a cell, or we bring back, capital punishment, or whatever it is they're really trying to get at here. Because really we're just punishing people forever, and most of the time for very petty things.
That's
so yeah, nobody should be left defenseless, man.
Yeah. The criminal justice thing, we could probably talk about that for the next hour and a half, because what the point of the reform system and everything is, just it doesn't make a ton of sense. Well, we are getting on. We're getting up toward 30 minutes. Richard, let the people watching know what you need in your campaign right now, and what where they can find more about you, and those types of things.
So we're doing an update on the website. That will be posted hopefully tomorrow. We're doing a big meeting up in Bangor, which is up in Caribou, Presque Isle area, which is right next to Canada. We're going to meet with my tech team, and they're going to get the website up. So it's LIGHT, the number 4me.org, lightforme.org, even rhymes. Or the best place to get up-to-date daily information is to follow me on Facebook. I think it's Maine Governor 2018, Libertarian Richard Light. Super long, I get it, but at the same time, it tells exactly what we're doing. And that has daily stuff. Politics changes every day. What's important to everybody changes every day. And it's a lot less facts and figures to hear what's coming out of our campaign daily than to go on the website, where you're reading mostly math and sort of lawful perspectives. It's the the higher mind stuff is on the website, which is great, but the day-to-day activity, if you want to really get involved, is on the Facebook page. As far as joining our campaign, anybody in Maine, go door to door, share the points of view, grab a pack of business cards from me, which links them into the website, and do it that way. I have books available on Amazon that cover the zero profit model, Maine's economy specifically. I have another book on the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. That's a much longer book, and it's very, very facts oriented. It's a little tougher of a read, but there are options to at least get educated about the campaign. And we covered a whole bunch of the topics today, which is phenomenal. So you've got the starter pack in your head right now. Money is great. I'm not trying to run on a money campaign. I don't want to be beholden to anybody. So if you own Dunkin' Donuts or you own Walmart, you want to throw me $1 million, please don't. Frankly, I don't want that big chunk of money. What I'd rather see you do is dump that money straight into your community and then say, a Libertarian gave me this idea. That will go a lot longer, a lot farther for everybody than just toss a bunch of cash. If you have a network or you have means and you do want to help out in other ways and you think you can get us a slot on TV or you think you can pitch a letter to the editor, please do. I'm not asking from anybody very much I'm not asking from anybody anything that I can't personally give them back. So, I want you to fight for yourself. I'm fighting for all of us. I stepped up not because I want to be a politician. This is definitely not how I envision my summer. And not how I envisioned actually the last 2 years of libertarian activism. But somebody's got to do it. We all have to just get up and speak. And even if you're not a speaker and you're an introvert, there are other ways to get involved. Write a letter, write a note, tell a friend, tell a buddy, tell a family member, but don't avoid the topics. Because I know, the first thing I hear, that politics, man, it burns me out. That's the point. They're trying to burn us out. They want us to be disengaged. They want us to walk away. They want us to leave the people that have been there for 38 years to continue to do the job of screwing us that they're always going to and always have done. So really, if you want to get involved, man, take a look in the mirror, say, this is the person that's got to step up today, and then make that happen.
All right, man, that's good. I mean, it sounds like, you're definitely looking at a grassroots type of campaign. I will say this, we're from Illinois. If you're watching this, wherever you're from, there is a donate link on Richard's site. So, if you feel the need to help out the Mainers, which is a term to describe people who live in Maine, which I think is kind of funny. We don't have that. We don't have that where I live. Like you don't have like Illinoisers or anything like that to go around. But
Illinoisans.
We're Illinoising the entire country. But
awesome, good, keep it up.
Yeah. So if you want to help Richard, go there and donate. Materials cost money. Being able to advertise and things like that on Facebook or other social media, that costs money. Again, I mean, we can share information. We can do other types of grassroots type of activism, but from out of state, it's going to be a little harder. So, but Richard, I really appreciate you joining me today for this interview. I wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Just real quick, you guys mentioned that after November, there might be an issue with ballot access in Maine. What's at stake here in this election? I mean, do you guys have to hit some sort of threshold to maintain your party status, or what's going on with that?
We do. So the AG that we just discussed earlier that crushed the competition, she also put forth legislation, and the red and blue team are more than happy to sign on board for the stipulations. So we have the requirements that a major party has. Which that's fine, we'll play by the same rules. I can deal with that. But what that means is that we need 10,000 registrations done by November of 2018, and that I need to pull in, I think 5%, it might be 10% of the vote. I have no inhibitions about being able to accomplish the 10%. What we're lacking is the 10,000 registrations. We don't have open primaries here. That system is set up to keep people from registering third party. And since it's looking like it's going to be we have, I think, 6 Democrats right now and 4 Republicans declared, and we're a year from their primary, so they're only going to get dozens to jump in. It's luring a ton of people to register D and R and not register L. But we have a huge amount of unenrolled voters. I think we have one of the biggest percentages of independents in the nation. So we're looking forward to using that to our advantage. But I just think it would be really funny. It wouldn't be great necessarily, but it'd be very funny to have a Libertarian governor and not have a Libertarian Party in his state. And that's the reality of what December of 2018 might look like if we continue the momentum of this grassroots movement. You know, my team is phenomenal here in Maine. They're reaching out. We're reaching all the way to Illinois and California and Florida. We're all over the nation getting some feedback and getting some help. So we really look forward to this movement, this push. There is a revolution rising across the nation, and it's not just in Maine, it's in your state too. So just keep on board with that. I'm very excited for where we're headed.
All right, I couldn't agree more. We're going to end with that. Guys, if you like this content, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends. Again, Richard, thanks so much for taking this time this morning to talk about this, and we definitely wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aaron.